Welcome to Newsfeed. I'm Tom Mustin. Today we're talking about special accommodations for vaccinated people, including some pretty good seats at sporting events. Plus this.
We need to see what is the truth of what's going on across our country as it relates to police officers and their taking of lives of people.
The efforts to give everyone a better idea of how often police officers are using force. But first, Rutgers has become the first university to require the COVID-19 vaccine. The New Jersey school says students enrolled in the fall semester will have to get vaccinated to attend in-person classes. People taking online courses are exempt, along with students who provide medical or religious reasons. Pfizer has started testing its COVID vaccine on younger children. Nearly 150 kids from 6 months old to 11 years old will be part of that trial. Moderna also recently expanded its trial to include younger children. Meanwhile, vaccinated fans are getting their own section at some NBA games. The Miami Heat will be the first team to start doing this at their game next Thursday. Other teams are expected to follow suit. The NBA says these vaccinated sections are allowed under specific conditions following local and state health and safety guidelines.
I think these vaccination sections will play a big part in this transition period where you have some of the population that's vaccinated and some of it that's not. But I think when we get to the end of the calendar year, when most folks are fully vaccinated and we reached herd immunity, you'll see these start to phase out and hopefully we'll return to normalcy.
The Heat will have two sections for a total of 450 fully vaccinated fans. Groups will be separated by one seat and masks are still required. Fans are required to have their final shot at least 14 days before the game. Kids aren't allowed in the section, even if their parents have been vaccinated, since kids can't get the shot just yet.
There are folks that have wanted to come to games, that are in our season ticket membership base, that didn't quite yet feel comfortable. But now that we have this section reserved for folks that are fully vaccinated, they're excited to come back.
Now, once fans arrive, they have to verify they've been fully vaccinated by showing their COVID-19 vaccination card and a photo ID. Then they'll get a wristband showing that. They won't have to do an on-site rapid test or be scanned by COVID-19 detection dogs unless they're sitting within 30 feet of the court. That COVID detection dog screening started at Heat games at the end of January. They tell us they have had to turn some fans away because of the dogs detecting something, but it's not clear how many fans have actually tested positive for COVID after that. The dogs have been specially trained to identify an active virus, so the Heat say they will not flag people who have received the vaccine. A small number of fans who haven't been vaccinated are still allowed at games as well, just in a separate section. Lawsuits have already been filed over Georgia's new voting restrictions. The suits claim the new voting requirements the governor signed into law yesterday will make it harder for minorities to vote. The law includes new restrictions on voting by mail. And for the better part of last year, the conversation surrounding race in America has been growing. Colleges and universities are playing a central role in keeping that conversation alive. Dan Grossman traveled to one of the country's first historically black colleges. He shows us how the death of George Floyd has acted as a catalyst for action.
For whom does the bell toll?
The second you step foot on this campus, you're stepping into history.
At Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina,
people who did not get it now get it.
It tolls for Ashley Neely.
It's involving systemic and structural inequities.
For Johnny Hill.
We need to collaborate with our counterparts in order to move forward.
For Ian Finley, who has experienced firsthand the inequities he now fights to change.
Even walking downtown, sometimes I was advised to, of course, not wear a hoodie. My parents would tell me to wear glasses, and sometimes I'd be like, why are they telling me to wear glasses? But for some reason, me wearing glasses makes me seem more innocent and less violent.
You might notice Ian's slight accent. Both he and Ashley are from the Bahamas, having only traveled to the United States for school.
I thought it was actually not as divided before coming to the United States.
It didn't take long for either to realize the America they dreamed of was not the America they now know.
I'm in the store and like this person is following me around the store, like I don't know what to do. She said, well, Ashley, like that's your reality now.
For Ian and Ashley, that new reality came to a head last May when George Floyd was killed. After seeing the fires, the outcry, the demands for change, the seniors approached one of the school's deans and helped create the Center for Racial and Social Justice, which has broadened the conversation of race in America from right here at Shaw to the greater Raleigh community, creating a blueprint for other universities to do the same.
This is our time. This is our moment to, I think, really shine the light on the power of the human spirit to bring about change and social transformation.
Dr. Johnny Hill is the dean who helped create the center. An activist himself, he wanted to confront the uncomfortable divisions that have hurt his community for generations. He got leaders, both political and not, to come together and answer the question, what does systemic racism look like?
For me, I think it's important that we move from feeling and emotion and this sort of visceral response of those kinds of images to organizing and to developing thoughtful action.
Around town, there are now art installations, speakers, events, places for those who might not see what they see to educate themselves in this fight that will take more than just a few inspirational figures to create true equality.
Knowledge is power, but it's the correct application of knowledge that is really going to get us to the point that we really need to be at.
I'm Dan Grossman reporting.
For decades now, undocumented immigrants who came to America as children have waited for a path to citizenship. Next on Newsfeed, we're looking at the newest shot. It's making its way through Congress. Many people who emigrate to this country do so dreaming of a better life. And then there are the dreamers, the children who came to this country without legal permission and who remain undocumented. The House recently passed a new Dreamers bill that could finally clear up their immigration status. But Maya Rodriguez tells us while Dreamers have hope for this bill, it still faces a tough road in the Senate.
For 20-year-old Yatsiri Cruz,
I was brought to the United States when I was 9 months old.
America is home.
Most of us dreamers came to the United States as children, not even knowing, and this is all we know.
Cruz, who goes to college and works as a paralegal, is one of 2 million people living in the country and legally allowed to work, known as dreamers.
We're citizens without the title. We're citizens without the title, without the benefits, without being recognized.
The name Dreamers comes from the Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors, or DREAM Act of 2001. In the 20 years since, there have been 11 versions of the bill introduced in Congress. None have become law. President Obama, through an executive action, allowed dreamers to apply for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA. But it's just that, deferred action, and offers no pathway to citizenship. But now, there's hope for change.
It's not just numbers, it's actual people that this is affecting.
Irvin Gonzalez is with CASA, an immigration advocacy organization.
We provide services and community organizing.
The House of Representatives recently passed a new Dreamers bill that could finally give some clarity to their immigration status. It now heads to the Senate, where it faces an uphill battle.
We're very happy to see the first step pass and waiting for the full act to pass. So now it's to continue to keep that pressure. The White House, the Senate was all one because of these promises you made for the immigrant community. So it's now to uphold and keep those promises that you made.
To 20-year-old Yatsiri Cruz,
We have hope. We have hope.
that means speaking out and sharing her story publicly.
I think we give our full and 100% to this country and to our people, our community.
In the hopes of a chance to stay. In York, Pennsylvania, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
With the housing market so competitive right now, renting to own may sound like a good option. What mortgage experts want you to know before considering this, and the other option they say would benefit you more. The FBI's National Police Use of Force database now covers a greater share of local police officers than ever before. But after years of protests following police actions from Minneapolis to Louisville to Ferguson, the public still does not have access to the information the Bureau is collecting. Together with our partners at Newsy, senior investigative reporter Mark Greenblatt shows us when that data might be released.
Amid the national unrest over police actions against citizens, a Newsy investigation last summer identified agencies all over the country who were not providing use of force data to the FBI. The Bureau wants reports about any serious use of force incident and any time an officer fires their gun at someone. Now, many large departments have begun participating, including the city where the nation's eyes will be next week for the trial of a Minneapolis police officer. After the George Floyd killing, police there told Newsy, "We're not sharing this data," but the agency did an about-face. Nationally, FBI data shows more than 850 agencies have begun sending the FBI data since our first report. One lawmaker wants to make reporting from every agency in his state mandatory.
This bill is designed to turn on the lights.
Missouri State Representative Bruce DeGroat's Police Use of Force Transparency Act passed unanimously out of 2 committees already. And the Republican says that he's got the important backing of Missouri's governor.
I want people to be able to identify those hot spots. If there are police departments in the state of Missouri that are misusing their powers, we should know about it.
The most recent FBI data shows only 17 out of over 600 agencies in Missouri participated in the FBI's program. But the legislation in Missouri could add to what the FBI says is a sudden surge in participation nationally. New numbers the FBI shared with Newsy in advance of its next update show that as of mid-March, almost 52% of sworn officers are employed by agencies now participating in the Bureau's use of force program. That's up from 41% of officers last summer. The FBI says it needs participation from 60% before it can publicly release any national or regional data.
The importance of this data is not just identifying one incident here or there. It's identifying patterns of incidents, patterns of behaviors that may lead to higher levels of violence.
Stephen Lewis is the police chief in Ellisville, Missouri, outside St. Louis.
We need to see what is the truth of what's going on across our country as it relates to police officers and their taking of lives of people.
The FBI will release a new list of agencies who've come online later this spring. For now, the Bureau tells Newsy that many states are looking to require reporting, which may be needed. In Texas, Dallas PD promised Newsy last July that they would start reporting to the FBI from this point forward. But we found out they never followed through. A spokesperson told Newsy, "I cannot provide you an explanation. Thank you for bringing this to our attention," and added Dallas police had started the process to join as of today. I'm Mark Greenblatt reporting.
Many real estate and financial experts are calling the current housing market a boom and not a bubble. Demand is driving up home prices. New construction hasn't been able to keep up with that demand and is only getting more expensive. Homes that are available are selling fast, at least a week earlier than this time last year.
To realize that you might make an offer on like 8 houses before one is accepted. And if you know that going in, it kind of takes away the disappointment and the disillusionment.
What's also different now from the housing crisis is lending is tighter. That is some people considering rent-to-own options. But a mortgage expert from NerdWallet says it shouldn't be a first option for most people.
A lot of times rent-to-own is best for people who can't qualify for a mortgage and they've found their dream home. You know, it might be just a really wonderful place in a wonderful neighborhood. It might be something that has been passed down through the family and this is the only way to get it.
Lewis says while it may be challenging, you're better off saving money on your own while you rent rather than letting a company or individual hold on to it. There's a new startup company offering people a path to home ownership through renting. The site Divvy Home says about a quarter of your monthly payment go towards your savings for a down payment. But if you decide not to buy the home and cash out your savings, there is a relisting fee. The prices you buy are also preset. That's why Lewis says if you do consider rent to own, have an independent appraiser and real estate attorney look over the property and the contract and make sure you take steps to qualify for mortgage at the end of your rent to own agreement. New Zealand just passed a measure that allows workers to take paid leave after a miscarriage. In the U.S., unpaid leave is possible when this happens, but that's something many Americans can't afford to do. Doctors and policy experts alike hope the change overseas gets people talking.
I'm hopeful that that policies like this will help normalize that this is a very real trauma for people that has physical and emotional recovery needs.
Because of the New Zealand policy, I think that in itself can be healing and validating for people, and it makes us realize, wait, how often is this happening?
Between 10 and 20% of known pregnancies in the U.S. end in miscarriage, according to the Mayo Clinic. But they say the actual number is likely much higher because many go unreported. Under New Zealand's policy, men and women get 3 days of paid leave. But for women, recovery is physical too and can take longer than a month in some cases. However, employers offering any amount of paid time can benefit the workplace.
Not only do workers need those policies, but that they also are not damaging to the economy, to businesses, and in many cases are really beneficial.
As the conversation on miscarriage grows, it can also open the door to social support networks.
The more people that you feel comfortable telling, the more opportunity there is for you to have support or learn about some of those support groups. People then will connect you to people that they know or different organizations that they know.
Some of the best support for after a miscarriage can be found through online support groups in your area.
I think it's definitely an unconscious bias and sort of a lack of understanding that there's a different market out there.
Finding the right wig for a woman of color can be difficult. Next on Newsfeed, how one group is working to fix this. This year, millions of women will suffer from some form of hair loss. Black women often have a harder time finding wigs that match their own hair. Chris Conti shows us the effort to make all women feel comfortable, even during an uncomfortable time for so many.
Empty chairs at salons across the country filled up fast once lockdowns were lifted. Patricia Wixson saw it firsthand.
It is a normalcy thing that all women will talk about it who come in.
For 30 years, she's been a hair replacement specialist. This year, though, she has noticed more women dealing with hair loss. Some of it, she says, is just from the stress of the pandemic.
No one knows what to do. They're really terrified because they don't know where it will stop, the shedding, how it will continue. It's stressful.
About 30 million women in this country are dealing with some kind of hair loss. Some of it is from the pressures of COVID. Other times, though, it's from chemotherapy.
For a woman, there's always a second look. It's not as acceptable.
Many of the women who Patricia treats are black, and until recently, they didn't have a lot of options when it came to wigs that weren't made for white women.
Why can't I have hair like my own hair?
It's just a devastating process to lose your hair.
That's where Diane Austin and her sister Pamela Shattuck come in.
1 in 3 Black women in particular will be diagnosed with cancer, any type of cancer in their lifetime.
They are the founders of Coils to Locks. A few years ago, facing a cancer diagnosis herself, Diane realized there weren't any wigs being made specifically for Black women.
I think it's definitely an unconscious bias and sort of a lack of understanding that there's a different market out there.
So these two sisters started making wigs themselves, ethnically inspired wigs, curly, natural hair. The wigs are now being sold in hospitals all over the country, most covered by insurance.
You want to look in the mirror and just feel like you have some control over all of these physical changes that are happening.
In the last 20 years, despite a universal drop in mortality rates, there's been a rise in the number of African American women with breast cancer, at an almost 42% higher rate than that of white women, making these wigs all the more important.
There are patients who oftentimes will not take chemotherapy because they're afraid of losing their hair.
As for Patricia Wixson, she no longer must alter wigs for her Black clients. Instead, they now have dozens of natural choices to pick from.
You're just not hung up and held back by some of the things that you were held back on. And so women are thinking, this is who I am. This is who I want to be.
Helping women feel beautiful both inside and out, one hairdo at a time. I'm Chris Conti.
And that does it for us today. I'm Tom Mustin. This is Newsfeed.
From the Seven Hills to the bluegrass, the riverbanks to the suburbs, this is home. where big dreams are born. A place to be creative, sing, and celebrate what unites us. Where we work hard to support our families, lend a helping hand to our neighbors in their time of need, celebrating the traditions and events that bring us together, learning from the past to build a better future, where everyone is welcome. And our roots run as deep as the love we have for this place. Because this is our home too. Owned by the same Cincinnati company for more than 70 years. And what matters to you matters to us.